Welcome to a story that still unsettles the people of Astoria, Oregon, even 28 years later. This is a true crime case that never received a name, never made national headlines, and never ended with handcuffs or a trial, but it left a scar on one small coastal town that refuses to heal completely. Late spring 1998, Astoria sits at the mouth of the Columbia River where the water meets the Pacific in a restless gray line. The town smells of salt, pine, and diesel from the fishing boats. Victorian houses climb the hills, their paint peeling from constant moisture. Streetlights buzz faintly at dusk. Most folks still leave their doors unlocked during the day. Eleanor Graves lived at 412 Exchange Street, a tidy two-story with white gingerbread trim, a deep porch, and rose bushes her mother had planted decades earlier. Eleanor was 42, never married, no children. She taught third grade at Astoria Elementary, the same school she had attended as a girl. Her students called her Miss Graves, and she answered every question with the same calm patience. She wore cardigans, soft blues and lavenders over simple dresses. Her hair was auburn, cut in a neat bob that framed her face. She carried the faint scent of chamomile tea and lavender hand cream. Parents trusted her. Neighbors waved when she passed. She was the kind of person you notice but don't think about twice. Steady, quiet, kind. Her routine never varied much. Up at 6:15, coffee with 2 sugars poured into a chipped ceramic mug, a quick walk to school, arriving by 7:40 to open windows and water the geraniums on the sill. After the bell rang at 3:15, she stayed to grade papers or prepare the next day's lesson until around 4:45. Then the walk home again, sometimes stopping at Nielsen's Market for milk, apples, or a small fillet of salmon her brother had dropped off frozen. Evenings were simple: soup from a can with bread toasted under the broiler, a novel, usually something gentle like a historical romance or an Agatha Christie. Lights out by 10:30, 11 at the latest. Baxter, her 12-year-old golden retriever, slept at the foot of the stairs, snoring softly. No one could remember Eleanor ever raising her voice, holding a grudge, or causing trouble. The biggest controversy in her life had been a school board meeting 2 years ago about new textbooks. She stayed silent during the debate. Then, on Tuesday, May 12, 1998, everything shifted, just a little at first. The mail carrier, Roy Hensley, had been walking the Exchange Street route for 18 years. He knew every dog by name, every porch by its creak. That morning, the air felt unusually warm for Astoria. He rolled up his sleeves and took an early lunch. Around 11:20, he slid the mail into Eleanor's brass box: a power bill, a gardening catalog, and one plain white postcard. No photograph on the front, no colorful border, just blank cardstock. On the back, in careful block letters, Miss Eleanor Graves, 412 Exchange Street, Astoria, Oregon, 97103. And beneath the address, a single typed sentence: I walk past your house every night. No stamp, no return address. Roy noticed the card felt almost weightless. He didn't think much of it at the time. People got odd mail sometimes, but he remembered Eleanor hadn't been on the porch to say hello, which she usually did. Eleanor came home for lunch around 1:30. She sorted the mail at the kitchen table. When she turned the postcard over, she read the sentence once, then again. She set it down beside her half-eaten tuna sandwich. A small chill ran through her, she later told a friend, like someone had opened a window in winter. She tried to laugh it off. Teenagers from the high school, maybe, or a former student playing a prank. Astoria had its share of bored kids who thought scaring teachers was funny. That evening, she showed the card to her next-door neighbor, Margaret Poole. She was 71, retired from the library, and missed nothing. She studied the handwriting through her bifocals, lips pursed. That's not a joke, Ellie. That's creepy. You call the police right now. Eleanor hesitated. Calling the police over a postcard felt dramatic. This was Astoria. People still left keys under flower pots. She decided to keep the card in the kitchen drawer, but do nothing else. Still, that night she turned the deadbolt on the front door and the back door and checked the windows twice. The next morning, she woke to find the porch light burning. She knew she had switched it off before bed. The switch made a distinct click. The bulb was old, prone to flickering, but it had never turned itself on. She stood on the porch in her robe, looking out at the empty street. Fog lay thick, streetlights glowed like muffled moons. Nothing moved. Over the next few nights, the light repeated, every time at exactly 2:13 a.m. Eleanor began setting her alarm to check. She would creep to the front window, peer through the lace curtain. No silhouette against the hedge, no footsteps on the gravel path, just the yellow glow snapping on, staying lit for exactly 7 minutes, then snapping off at 2:20. She started sleeping lighter. Baxter, who had always barked at raccoons or passing cars, went silent at night. Completely silent. No growl, no whine. On Thursday, she noticed he didn't even lift his head when the mail truck rumbled past. By Saturday, he refused his food. He sniffed the bowl, looked up at her with clouded eyes, then walked away and lay down in the hallway. The vet examined him the following Monday. No fever, no obstruction, normal blood work. Stress, the vet said, frowning. Something's bothering him. Eleanor felt the same. Something was bothering her, too. She stopped leaving the windows open at night. She checked the locks obsessively. She began parking her car in the driveway instead of the garage so she could see it from the house. Then came the morning of May 26, 1998. Eleanor didn't arrive at school. Her third graders sat waiting in the classroom. The clock ticked past 8:05. The principal called her home number. No answer. Called her cell phone, straight to voicemail. A fellow teacher drove to Exchange Street. The house looked peaceful from the outside. Curtains open, porch light off, no broken glass, no overturned planters. The front door was locked. The back door was locked. Inside, time had stopped. A kettle sat on the stove, tea still warm when the teacher touched the side. Eleanor's grading papers lay fanned across the kitchen table, red pen uncapped on top of a half-marked spelling test. The television remote rested on the couch cushion. Baxter lay curled in his bed, breathing shallowly, refusing to stand. On the kitchen counter, propped neatly against the sugar bowl, another postcard. Same white stock, same block handwriting on the address side. On the back, one line. Tonight, you didn't lock the back door. That was the last anyone saw of Eleanor Graves. No blood, no signs of struggle, no fingerprints that didn't belong, just a warm teapot, a sick dog, and a postcard that should never have existed. Because when police checked with the post office, they learned something chilling. Neither postcard had ever gone through the system. No postmark, no cancellation ink, no record in any sorting facility between Portland and Astoria. Someone had placed them directly into her mailbox. Someone who walked right up to her house. Someone who knew exactly when she would find them, and someone who knew she hadn't locked the back door that night, even though Eleanor swore she had.
Whoever was doing this wasn't just watching Eleanor. They were teaching the town to watch the clock. The morning after Eleanor vanished, Thursday, May 28, 1998, the Astoria Police Department treated 412 Exchange Street like a crime scene from the moment they stepped inside. No blood, no overturned furniture, no sign of violence. But every untouched detail screamed interruption. The kettle still warm enough to steam faintly when Officer Ruiz brushed his knuckles against it. The red pen lying uncapped as though Eleanor had paused mid-sentence to listen to something in the hall. Detective Marla Voss arrived just after 9. She was 41, 12 years in major crimes out of Portland before transferring to the coast for what she called quieter murders. She had never quite believed in quiet murders. She walked the house slowly, gloved hands behind her back, cataloging. Kitchen, chamomile tea bag still dripping into the saucer, one bite missing from a piece of toast on a small blue plate. The butter knife rested blade up, a tiny curl of butter clinging to the edge. Living room, television remote on the couch cushion, channel still tuned to PBS. The news hour had ended at 7 p.m. the night before. A bookmark, shaped like a pressed violet leaf, sat halfway through The Daughter of Time. Stairs. Baxter's water bowl at the bottom landing, half full. His leash hung on the newel post, untouched. Upstairs bedroom. Bed made with hospital corners, the way Eleanor always left it. Nightstand lamp switched off. lavender sachet packet open beside the clock radio, 2:13 displayed in red budgets, frozen there since the power blinked sometime after she vanished. Voss stopped at the clock. She pressed the reset button. Nothing. Unplugged it, waited 10 seconds, plugged it back in. The display blinked 12 o'clock. She set it to the correct time manually. Within minutes, the numbers rolled forward normally, but she noted it anyway. Downstairs again, she found the second postcard still propped against the sugar bowl. She photographed it in place before bagging it. The block letters were so even they looked typeset, yet the slight pressure variations in the ink said hand-printed, carefully, deliberately. She turned to Officer Ruiz. "Who has keys to this house?" "Margaret Poole next door. Brother in Salem has one. That's it, far as we know." "Landlord?" "Eleanor owns it, inherited from her mother in '89. Voss nodded once. Then someone either had a key or didn't need one. They dusted the back door, the one the postcard claimed had been left unlocked. Prints everywhere. Eleanor's, Margaret's, from when she'd watered plants last summer, a few partials that might belong to delivery people over the years. Nothing fresh, nothing foreign. The deadbolt showed no tool marks. The chain was still hooked from the inside when they entered. Voss crouched, studied the strike plate. If someone picked this, they're good. No scratches, no torque damage. Ruiz shifted. Or she really did forget to lock it. Voss looked up at him. She wrote it down. She was checking locks twice. She didn't forget. They moved to the mailbox on the porch rail. Standard black metal, flag down. Voss opened it with a pen. Empty, except for yesterday's power bill and a flyer for a local roofing company. No third postcard. She closed it gently. Someone's been putting these in by hand. No postmark, no sorting marks. They walked up, opened the box, placed it, walked away, in full view of the street. Ruiz glanced toward the hedge. At night, in fog, nobody sees much after 11 here. Exactly. They interviewed Margaret again that afternoon. She sat on her own porch swing, clutching a mug of tea she hadn't sipped. "She showed me the first card," Margaret repeated. "We laughed, nervous laugh, you know. Then the light started, every night, 2:13, like a signal. I told her to call you people. She said she didn't want to look foolish." "Did she ever mention seeing anyone, hearing footsteps?" Margaret had her head. She said Baxter stopped barking at night. That scared her more than the light. He used to growl at shadows. Then, nothing. Like he knew something was out there and decided silence was safer. Voss wrote that down. That evening, the neighborhood started talking louder. A woman across the street said her own porch light had flickered at 2:10 the night before Eleanor disappeared, like someone passing close enough to disturb the photocell. She thought it was wind. Now she wasn't sure. A teenage boy who delivered newspapers said he had seen a tall figure in a dark coat standing at the end of Exchange Street around 1:50 a.m. a week earlier, just standing, not moving. When the boy biked closer, the figure stepped behind a parked van and was gone, like he melted. By nightfall, the police had a patrol car parked discreetly at the corner. They watched. 2:13 a.m. The porch light flared on. 7 minutes later, it died. No one approached the house. No silhouette crossed the lawn. The motion lights in neighboring yards stayed dark. But inside the taped-off house, the clock radio in Eleanor's bedroom, now reset and ticking, reached 2:13 again the next night, and the porch light answered. Exactly. Voss stood on the sidewalk at 2:20, watching the light go dark. She felt the cold settle deeper than the fog. This wasn't random. This was choreography. Someone had rehearsed every second. Someone knew the rhythm of Eleanor's life better than Eleanor did. And now that she was gone, the rhythm kept playing. Without her. The clockwork shadow had only just begun to show its hands.
The porch light at 412 Exchange Street didn't care that yellow police tape now crisscrossed the front steps. It came on anyway. 2:13 a.m. every night without fail. 7 minutes of steady yellow glow spilling across the lawn, turning the rose bushes into black paper cutouts. Then off at 2:20. precise, unchanging, like the house itself had learned the routine and refused to break it. Detective Marla Voss started sleeping in her car some nights, parked diagonally across from the Lutheran church, engine off, window cracked just enough to hear gravel crunch under tires. She watched the light with the same quiet fury she once reserved for men who beat their wives in front of their children. This wasn't violence she could cuff. This was patience weaponized. By mid-June, the department had quietly expanded the net. They subpoenaed phone records again, deeper this time. Every call Eleanor had made or received in the previous 6 months. Nothing. No late-night hang-ups, no blocked numbers. Her brother Thomas confirmed that Tuesday calls were routine. He'd even joked once about setting his watch by them. They pulled the power company logs for 412 exchange. The porch light was on a simple wall switch, no smart features, no timer installed. Yet the usage spiked every night at 2:13 for exactly 420 seconds. 420 seconds. 7 minutes. The meter didn't lie. An electrical engineer from Portland volunteered to help. He spent a full day in the house with multimeters, oscilloscopes, thermal cameras. He found nothing anomalous in the wiring, no hidden relays, no induced current, no evidence of tampering. He looked at Voss over his reading glasses. If this is mechanical, it's not in the house. If it's electrical, it's not in the circuit. That leaves only 2 possibilities: someone flipping the switch in person, or something we don't understand yet. Detective Voss didn't believe in something we don't understand yet. She believed in people. People with keys. People with motives. People who watched. They re-interviewed Roy Hensley, the mail carrier. He sat in the station break room, cap in his hands, turning it slowly like a steering wheel. "I deliver to that street 6 days a week, never saw anyone strange hanging around her place. But there was one morning, maybe a week before the first postcard, I noticed her mailbox flag was already up when I got there, around 10:30. I thought maybe she'd put outgoing mail out early, but the box was empty, just the flag sticking up like a signal." He paused. "I put her mail in anyway, didn't think much of it. Now I wonder if someone raised the flag so I'd open the box, see nothing, and not notice if something was already inside waiting for her." Voss leaned forward. "You ever see anyone near the box before you arrived?" Roy shook his head. "Fog's thick in the mornings. Could have been someone 10 feet away and I wouldn't have seen them." They asked about the hooded figure the teenage newspaper boy had seen. Roy frowned. "Tall, dark coat. Yeah, I've seen someone like that walking the waterfront path sometimes, late, never close enough to ID. Thought it was just another night walker. We get a lot of them here, people trying to outrun their own heads." Voss wrote it down. Waterfront path. Connected to Exchange Street via a narrow service alley that ran behind the row of houses, the same alley where the backyard camera had caught that single frozen frame of a shape with no visible feet. They staked out the alley next. 2 officers in plain clothes, parked in an unmarked pickup at the far end, night vision binoculars, digital recorder running. They waited. At 2:05 a.m., the motion light at the house 3 doors down snapped on for 10 seconds, then off. At 2:10, another neighbor's sensor triggered, briefly. At 2:12:45, the officers heard it. Slow footsteps on wet gravel, not hurried, not cautious, just present, coming closer. They held their breath. The footsteps stopped, maybe 15 feet from the back fence of 412 Exchange. Silence. Then the porch light came on. The footsteps resumed, same deliberate pace, moving away down the alley, fading. The officers waited 30 seconds, then slipped out. Flashlights swept the gravel. One fresh print, size 11 men's boot, partial tread. They photographed it, cast it in dental stone before the fog could dissolve it. The tread pattern matched nothing in any local database. Generic hiking sole, sold everywhere. But it was something. The next night they returned with more people, 4 officers now.
one in the alley, one on the roof of the house across the street with a long lens, one inside 412, watching from the darkened kitchen window, one mobile, circling the block. 213, light on. No footsteps, no motion lights triggered, no figure. Just the glow, 7 minutes, off. The officer on the roof swore he saw movement, a tall shape stepping behind a tree across the street at 2:19:50, but when the light died and they swept the area, nothing. No footprints on the grass, no broken twigs, nothing. Voss stared at the photo of the boot print taped to the evidence board. She added a new line beneath it in red marker. He walks the alley. He times the light. He leaves one mark, then nothing. She circled the word he twice. Gender assumption maybe, but the height, the stride length from the print, the posture in the infrared frame, all suggested male, tall, calm, unhurried. They started calling him the clockwork man in the station, never officially, never in reports, just among themselves. Because whoever he was, he didn't rush, he didn't panic, he didn't make mistakes they could use. He simply continued. And every night the house answered him. 2:13, 7 minutes, darkness. The town began to feel it too. Children stopped playing flashlight tag after 10 p.m. Older residents left porch lights burning all night, not for safety, but because they didn't want to be the only dark house on the block. Margaret Poole started sleeping in her recliner facing the front window. She kept Eleanor's spare key in her pocket like a talisman. And Baxter, still at the vet clinic, finally refused water. They put him on an IV. He lay with his head on his paws, eyes open, staring at the doorway, waiting, still waiting. The light kept its appointment. The shadow kept disappearing, and somewhere in Astoria, someone kept the count going.
By late June 1998, the Astoria Police Department had quietly reclassified Eleanor Graves' case from missing endangered to presumed abduction with possible homicide elements. No body, no ransom, no witnesses, just a house that still obeyed an invisible schedule, and a town that had started to flinch every time a clock struck 2. Detective Marla Voss kept the evidence board updated in the small CID room that smelled of burnt coffee and damp paper. Photos pinned in neat rows, the 2 postcards, the infrared frame of the figure with no feet, the single boot print from the alley gravel, the clock radio frozen at 2:13. New additions appeared almost daily. One was a grainy still from the gas station camera 2 blocks away, dated May 25th, the night before Eleanor vanished. A tall figure in a dark hooded coat walking past the pumps at 1:47 a.m., head down, hands in pockets. The camera caught the side profile for less than 2 seconds before the figure passed out of frame. No face visible, but the gait, long stride, shoulders relaxed, no hurry, matched the posture in every other sighting. Voss taped it beside the infrared capture. Same man, same calm. They ran the still through every enhancement tool Portland could lend. Nothing new. The hood shadowed everything useful. Another piece, Eleanor's brother Thomas had found something in her attic when he came back to pack a few keepsakes for storage. A small metal tin, the kind that once held cough drops, hidden behind a stack of yearbooks. Inside, 3 things. A spare house key, not labeled, but it fit the front door perfectly. A folded piece of paper with 1 sentence in Eleanor's handwriting, "If anything happens, check the mailbox first." And a single Polaroid photograph, slightly overexposed, taken at night from inside the house through the kitchen window. The timestamp on the bottom read May 18th, 1998, 2:14 a.m. The image showed the backyard fence line. At the edge of the frame, just beyond the roses, stood a tall shape, hood up, facing the house, motionless. Eleanor had taken the photo herself, from inside, at 2:14, right after the porch light came on. She had seen him, she had photographed him, and she had hidden the evidence. Thomas handed the tin to Voss with shaking hands. "She never said a word about this, not to me, not to anyone." Voss steadied the Polaroid under strong light. The figure's outline was sharp against the faint glow from the porch. No features, but the coat looked heavy, maybe canvas or oilskin, the kind fishermen wore, sleeves too long, cuffs hanging over the hands. She added it to the board. The key puzzled her most. Why keep a spare hidden in the attic, unless someone else had one, and she wanted a backup no one knew about? They changed the locks on 412 Exchange Street that same day. New deadbolts, new keys. Voss kept one set, Margaret Poole got another. The old keys were collected and destroyed. That night, the porch lights still came on at 2:13. 7 minutes. Off at 2:20. The new locks didn't stop the ritual. Voss sat inside the house for the first time during the appointed hour. Lights off, curtains parted just enough. She waited in the kitchen chair Eleanor used for grating, back to the wall, service weapon on her lap. 2:13. The porch lights snapped on outside. Inside, nothing moved. No sound from the back door, no creak on the porch steps, no shadow crossed the window. She waited until 2:20. The light died. She exhaled slowly. Then she noticed something she hadn't before. The clock radio on the nightstand upstairs, now kept running for observation, had reset itself again. Not to 12 o'clock this time, to 2:13 exactly, as though the power had blinked at that precise second. She checked the breaker box in the basement. No tripped circuits, no surges logged on the utility monitor they'd installed. The house was playing its own game now. The next development came from an unexpected source. A retired longshoreman named Harold Voss, no relation to Marla Voss, lived 4 blocks away on the waterfront. He kept a ham radio set up in his garage and listened to marine bands most nights. On the evening of July 3rd, he called the tip line. He said he heard something odd back in May, around 2 in the morning, static on channel 16, the distress frequency. Just static at first, then a voice, male, low, said one sentence, clear as anything, "She's asleep now." Then nothing, static again. Harold paused, thought it was a drunk boater at first, but it happened 3 nights in a row, May 20th, 21st, 22nd, always around 2:10 to 2:15. Then it stopped. Never heard it again. Voss met him at his garage the next afternoon. The old man played back a cassette he'd recorded one of the nights, habit from years on the docks. The tape hissed. Then the voice cut through. "She's asleep now." Flat, almost gentle, no accent Voss could place. Not local, not obviously anything. They sent the recording to the state lab for voice analysis. Partial match to no one in their system. The cadence was deliberate, each word given equal weight. No emotion, no urgency. Just fact. She's asleep now. Voss played it for Margaret Poole. Margaret listened twice, eyes closed. "I don't recognize that voice," she said, "but it sounds like someone reading from a script, like they practiced it." The town's fear hardened into something colder. People stopped walking Exchange Street after dark entirely. Houses along the block left exterior lights burning 24/7. One family moved their teenage daughter's bedroom to the front of the house so she could see the street. Kids no longer whispered about the 213 house as a dare. Now they avoided the whole block. Baxter died on July 7th. The vet called Margaret first. She went to the clinic, sat on the floor beside his kennel, and held his head until the breathing stopped. They buried him in Eleanor's backyard, under the rose bushes he used to sniff. Margaret planted a small marker, nothing fancy, just his name and the dates. That night, July 7th, the porch lights still came on at 2:13, but this time it stayed on. Not 7 minutes, not 20, it burned until dawn. When the sun rose, the bulb was still glowing, faint now, filament nearly spent. Voss arrived at first light. She stood on the porch staring at the light that refused to die.
She reached up and unscrewed the bulb with her bare hand. It was scorching. She dropped it into an evidence bag. The socket was empty. The house went dark. For the first time in weeks, 412 Exchange Street stayed dark at 2:13. The next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. Voss felt no relief. She felt watched, because if the light had been a signal, and now it was silent, then the signal had been received. The clockwork shadow had finished one phase, and something new was beginning.
After the porch light finally burned out on the morning of July 8, 1998, 412 Exchange Street went quiet for the first time in nearly 2 months. No glow at 2:13, no 7-minute vigil, no footsteps in the alley gravel, no whispered voice on Marine Band Channel 16 saying, "She's asleep now." The silence felt louder than the ritual ever had. Detective Marla Voss stood on the sidewalk that first night after the bulb died, staring at the dark porch. She waited until 2:20 just to be sure. Nothing. The house looked ordinary again, peeling white paint, rose bushes drooping under summer damp, windows reflecting only streetlight. But ordinary felt wrong now, like a mask that had slipped back into place too quickly. She didn't trust the quiet. The department scaled back the overnight watches, one patrol car every few hours instead of constant stakeout. Resources were thin. Summer tourist season brought its own crimes: drunk boaters, petty thefts from vacation rentals, bar fights on the waterfront. Eleanor's case had gone cold in the eyes of the brass. No new leads, no body, no confession, just postcards that had stopped, a light that had stopped, and a missing schoolteacher who might already be gone forever. Voss refused to let it go. She started digging sideways into things no one had asked about yet. Eleanor's third-grade classroom at Astoria Elementary had been untouched since May 26th. The principal kept the door locked, but let Voss in one afternoon in late July. Desks still arranged in neat rows, chalkboard half erased mid-sentence, spelling words for Friday, friend, because, through. A wilting geranium on the windowsill. Eleanor's desk drawer held the usual: grading stickers shaped like smiling stars, a spare pair of reading glasses, and a small stack of thank you notes from parents. One note, dated May 15th, caught her eye. Handwritten on lined paper torn from a spiral notebook. Dear Miss Graves, thank you for helping Lucas with his letters. He's writing his name better now. Sorry if he's been quiet lately. Things are strange at home. Mrs. Chen. Lucas Chen, the boy whose spelling test still lay on Eleanor's kitchen table, the one with the backwards E in friend. Voss tracked down Mrs. Chen, Li Wei Chen, a single mother working nights at the cannery. They met at a coffee shop near the port. Li Wei looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. She was in Lucas's class last year, she said. He liked Miss Graves, said she never yelled, but after the postcards started, I don't know, Lucas started having nightmares, said he saw a tall man outside our window sometimes, the same time every night, around 2 in the morning. Voss leaned in. Did Lucas describe him? Dark coat, hood up. He didn't walk fast, he just stood and watched. Did he ever look at you? No, only at houses, like he was counting windows. Voss pulled out the Polaroid Eleanor had taken, the backyard figure at 2:14. Li Wei stared at it. Her breathing changed, shallower, quicker. That's him, she whispered, the way he stands, straight, like he's waiting for something. She paused. Lucas stopped sleeping through the night after Miss Graves disappeared. He'd wake up screaming, said the man was waiting for her to come back, said if she didn't, the man would take someone else. Voss felt the air go still.
Did Lucas ever see the man near Eleanor's house? Li Wei shook her head. He said he walked past our street sometimes, but always toward Exchange, always at night. She looked up. I moved us to my sister's in Seaside last month. Lucas sleeps better there, but he still asks about Miss Graves, asks if the tall man found her. Voss wrote down the new address, thanked her, drove straight to Seaside. Lucas Chen was 9 now, small for his age, serious eyes behind thick glasses. He sat on the couch in his aunt's living room, knees drawn up. Voss spoke gently. Your mom said you saw someone outside sometimes. Lucas nodded once. Can you tell me what he looked like? Tall, like my dad, but taller. Black coat with the hood up. He didn't walk fast. He just stood and watched. Did he ever look at you? No, only at houses, like he was counting windows. Voss pulled out the Polaroid Eleanor had taken, the backyard figure at 2:14. Lucas stared at it. His breathing changed, shallower, quicker. That's him, he whispered, the way he stands, straight, like he's waiting for something. He paused, pointed at the 2 long sleeves. His hands were always covered, like he didn't want anyone to see them. Voss asked the hardest question. Did you ever see him with Miss Graves? Lucas shook his head. No, but one night I heard something from her yard, like a door closing, soft, then footsteps going away, fast. I looked out my window. The porch light was on, but no one was there. He looked at Voss. I think he took her, because she saw him, and he didn't like being seen. Voss left Seaside with a knot in her stomach. Back in Astoria, she pulled every nighttime 911 call and suspicious activity report from May and June. One stood out, filed May 22nd, 2:17 a.m. Caller, anonymous, payphone at the waterfront. Report, someone's screaming in a house on Exchange Street. Sounds like a woman. Then it stopped. The responding officer found nothing. No lights on, no open doors. No one answered the knock at 4:12. They chalked it up to a misdirected call or a TV left on. But the timing fit. 2:17, 4 minutes into the porch light's 7-minute window. Voss replayed the timeline in her head. Postcards begin May 12th. Light ritual starts shortly after. Eleanor photographs the figure May 18th. Anonymous 911 call May 22nd. Eleanor disappears May 26th. Light continues until July 7th. Then, silence. She added a new line to the board. May 22nd. Possible scream heard. 2:17 a.m. Call from waterfront payphone. She circled it. The silence lasted exactly 21 days. On July 29, 1998, at 2:13 a.m., the new porch light, installed after the old bulb burned out, came on again. Not 7 minutes, 9 minutes. Off at 2:22. The next night, 9 minutes again. Then 10, then 11. The interval was stretching. Voss sat in her car that 4th night, watching the glow lengthen. She felt it in her bones. This wasn't malfunction. This wasn't coincidence. This was message. The clockwork shadow hadn't stopped. It had only paused. To let the town breathe. To let them think it was over. To let them lower their guard. And now it was counting again. Slower, longer, more deliberate. As though it had all the time in the world. The silence had been a lie. The shadow was still there, waiting for the next hour to begin.
The stretching intervals continued through August 1998. What had once been 7 rigid minutes of porch light glow became something elastic, unpredictable, cruel. August 1, 11 minutes. August 3, 13 minutes. August 7, 17 minutes.
By August 15, the light stayed on for 23 minutes, long enough that neighbors 2 streets over could see the faint yellow rectangle glowing against the night sky like a beacon no one had asked for. Detective Marla Voss no longer waited in her car every night. She couldn't. Sleep deprivation had carved hollows under her eyes. Her hands shook when she poured coffee. But she still drove past Exchange Street between 2 and 3 a.m., headlights off, engine idling at the corner. She timed each appearance with the dashboard clock. The numbers kept climbing. 26 minutes on August 22, 31 on August 29. The department psychologist, brought in from Portland, told her privately, "This isn't about the light anymore. This is about control. Whoever's doing this wants the town to know they can stretch time itself. They want everyone waiting, counting, afraid of what happens when the minutes finally stop." Voss didn't argue. She felt it too. The waiting had become the punishment. Then came September 4th. The light came on at 2:13 a.m. as always. It stayed on and stayed on. Voss arrived at 3:45, summoned by a patrol officer who'd driven by on routine check. The glow was still burning, strong, steady, no flicker. She stood on the sidewalk until 4:30, still on. She called the electrical crew back. They arrived at dawn with tool belts and skeptical faces. They tested the socket, the wiring, the breaker, everything normal. The bulb, new since July, wasn't overheating, no shorts, no anomalies. At 7:12 a.m., after 99 minutes of continuous burn, the light simply went out. No click, no dimming, just gone. Voss felt the silence land like a physical weight. That same morning, a fisherman walking the waterfront path near the old cannery ruins found something half buried in the sand and driftwood, a woman's lavender cardigan. Soaked through, torn at one sleeve, buttons missing. The label inside still readable, N. Graves, dry clean only. Forensic techs from the state lab processed it. Salt water had destroyed most trace evidence, but they lifted 2 partial fingerprints from a button that had survived inside the cuff. One matched Eleanor's right index finger. The other, smudged but clear enough, was unidentified. No hit in any database. The cardigan had been placed deliberately, not washed ashore randomly. The tears weren't from rocks or waves. They looked like deliberate rips. Long, straight, almost careful. Voss stared at the evidence photo pinned to the board. She added beneath it, September 4th, cardigan recovered. Waterfront, 1.2 miles from house. Light burned 99 minutes prior. 99 minutes. She circled the number. Someone had waited 99 minutes before extinguishing the light. Someone had marked the moment. She pulled every Marine Band recording Harold Voss still had from that night, static. Then, at 4:11 a.m., almost exactly when the light finally died, the same low voice cut through Channel 16. Not, "She's asleep now." This time, "She waited long enough." 3 words. Calm. Final. The tape hissed back to silence. She played it on loop in the empty station at 3 a.m. the next night. She listened until her ears rang. She waited long enough. For what? For rescue that never came? For the police to give up? For the town to forget? Or for something worse? On September 12th, Margaret Poole called Voss at home, 2:47 a.m. "Marla, the light's on again." Voss was there in 12 minutes. The porch light burned steady, but the kitchen light, inside the house, was also on. A single bulb over the sink, the one Eleanor used when she made late-night tea. It hadn't been touched since May. Voss entered with her weapon drawn, cleared room by room. Empty. The kettle sat on the stove, Cold now, but the burner beneath it was still faintly warm. Someone had boiled water, recently. On the kitchen table, a fresh white postcard. No address this time, just the block letters centered. 7 minutes was too kind. Now she knows forever. Voss bagged it without breathing. No prints, no fibers, no DNA. But the handwriting, same careful pressure, same perfect alignment, was unmistakable. The light stayed on until 5:03 a.m. that night, 2 hours and 50 minutes. Then darkness again. The intervals kept growing after that. 3 hours, 4, 5. By late October, the porch light would sometimes burn from 2:13 until sunrise, nearly 4 hours in the shortening fall nights. Neighbors stopped reporting it. What was there to say? The house was haunted by math. Voss kept her own log. She noticed the pattern emerging. The minutes added up in strange ways. 7 to 11 to 17 to 23 to 31 to 99 to 170 to 240 to 300. Prime numbers. Each duration a prime number. She checked back through every recorded night. May, June, 7, prime. July, 7 again, then silence. August, 11, 13, 17, 23, 29, 31. September, 99, not prime, but 99 minutes before the cardigan. 99 equals 9 times 11, but perhaps symbolic. Then October onward, 101, 107, 109, 113. All prime after the pause. She wrote on the board in red, prime intervals, starting small, growing larger, no upper limit. She stared at her own handwriting. This wasn't just control. This was mathematics made menacing. A countdown in reverse, not towards 0, but towards infinity, towards forever. And on Halloween night, October 31st, 1998, the light came on at 2:13 a.m. It burned, and burned, through midnight, through dawn, through the next day. It never went out. Not that night, not the next week. The bulb stayed lit, steady, unblinking, until the electricity was finally cut by the utility company on November 7th to prevent fire risk. Even then, neighbors swore they saw a faint glow in the windows some nights, as though the house itself had learned to generate its own light. The shadow had stopped counting minutes. It had begun counting years.
November 7th, 1998. The utility crew cut power to 412 Exchange Street at 10:47 a.m. The meter stopped spinning. The house went dark, truly dark, for the first time since May. Neighbors exhaled. Some left flowers on the porch steps, small bouquets of lavender and white roses tied with ribbon. Margaret Poole swept the front walk one last time, locked the new deadbolt with the key Voss had given her, and walked away without looking back. The Astoria Police Department officially suspended active investigation 3 weeks later. Case file 98-0526 moved to cold storage. Eleanor Graves listed as missing, presumed deceased. No body, no confession, no arrest. But the file never closed in Detective Marla Voss's mind. She kept a private log after that, not official, just a spiral notebook she carried in her coat pocket. Dates, times, observations. November 1998 to December 1999. Nothing reported on Exchange Street. No lights, no postcards, no whispers on the Reen Band. The house sat empty, listed for sale in spring 1999. No buyers. January 2000. A new family, young couple with a toddler, purchased 412 Exchange at a steep discount. They repainted the trim, replaced the porch light fixture with a motion sensor model, moved in on Valentine's Day.
February 14, 2000, 2:13 a.m. The new motion sensor light came on. No one had walked past, no cat, no raccoon, no wind. 7 minutes. Off at 2:20. The couple laughed it off at first. Faulty sensor, cheap wiring. They replaced the fixture again. Same result. By March, the light obeyed the old schedule, 7 minutes, then began stretching again. 11, 17, 23. The family moved out in July 2000. They never spoke publicly about why, but the real estate agent later told a colleague off record. They said the house kept time better than they did. The property sat vacant for 2 years, foreclosed in 2002, auctioned, bought by an out-of-town investor who never visited. In 2003, a local historian researching Astoria's unsolved disappearances pulled the graves file for a small article in the Daily Historian. She interviewed Margaret Poole, now in her late 70s, still living next door. Margaret spoke softly. She never left that house, not really. Whatever took her, it stayed. It's still there, counting, waiting for the next person to notice the clock is wrong. The article ran on page 3. Few people read it. But in 2005, a teenage girl walking home from a late movie passed Exchange Street at 2:10 a.m. She stopped, watched the empty house. At 2:13, the porch light, long since disconnected, glowed faintly yellow. She ran home, told her parents. They called the police. Officers found the house dark, no power connected since 1998, no bulb in the socket. They chalked it up to streetlight reflection or imagination. The girl never walked that block again. Over the next decade, reports trickled in, sporadic, never enough for a formal reopening. A jogger in 2008 saw a tall figure standing in the alley at 2:19, watching the back windows, gone when he blinked. A delivery driver in 2011 heard a kettle whistle inside the empty house at 2:14. No one lived there. A real estate photographer in 2014 captured an orb of light in the kitchen window during a daytime shoot. The camera timestamp 14:13 military time. He deleted the photo, but he kept the memory. In 2018, 20 years after Eleanor vanished, a true crime podcaster visited Astoria. She recorded an episode titled The 213 House. She interviewed the few remaining witnesses. Margaret Poole, now 91, spoke from her porch swing one last time. She was kind, Margaret said. Too kind to fight something that patient. It didn't rush her. It waited. And when she was gone, it waited for the rest of us to notice we were next. Margaret died 3 months later, peacefully, in her sleep. Her family sold the house. The new owners never mentioned the light. As of 2025, 27 years later, the house at 412 Exchange Street remains standing, empty, unsold. The porch light fixture is empty, wires capped, power long disconnected. Yet people who live nearby still set alarms at 2:13 some nights, just to check. Most nights, nothing. Some nights, a faint yellow glow behind the curtains. Never the same duration twice. Always a prime number of minutes. No one has ever caught the figure on camera again. No new postcards, no more voices on Channel 16. But the math continues. Patient, unhurried, infinite. Whoever or whatever walked past Eleanor Graves' house in 1998 never stopped walking. They simply learned to wait longer between steps, and the house keeps the time for them. Still counting, still waiting, for the next person who notices the clock is wrong and answers the light.
This is where the story ends. Not because we found Eleanor Graves, Not because someone was arrested in handcuffs on the 6 o'clock news, not because the porch light at 412 Exchange Street finally stayed dark forever. It ends because some stories don't close. They stretch, like the minutes did, from 7 to 11 to 17 to primes that climb forever toward a number too big to say out loud. 28 years have passed since that first postcard arrived in May 1998. The house still stands, peeling, quiet, unsold. New people walk Exchange Street now. Younger faces, different dogs, different fears. Most of them have never heard her name. But on certain nights, foggy ones usually, someone will glance toward number 412 at exactly 2:13 and feel it. The air changes, just a little, like someone else is already counting the seconds before the glow begins. No one has seen the tall figure in the hooded coat since the early 2000s. No new postcards, no more voices on Channel 16. Yet the people who grew up hearing the story still set quiet alarms sometimes. Not every night, just once in a while, to look out the window, to check. Because deep down, they know the clockwork shadow didn't leave Astoria. It only learned to wait longer, to become background noise, to hide inside the ordinary tick of ordinary time, until someone, anyone, starts paying attention to the wrong minute on the wrong clock. Eleanor Graves was kind, steady, the sort of person who graded papers in red ink when she was tired and green when she was happy. She never asked to be remembered this way, but she is. And somewhere in the long dark between 2:13 and whenever the light decides to go out next, a patient thing is still walking past that house, every night, every single night. Not in a hurry, not angry, just present, counting primes, counting minutes, counting people who still look at their watches at 2:13 and wonder if tonight the glow will answer. It usually doesn't, but it only takes one night when it does. And on that night, whenever it comes, the story begins again, for someone else. Thank you for staying until the very last second. Sleep well, Johnvie, and if you ever find yourself on a quiet coastal street at 2:13, don't look at the porch lights. Not all of them, just one. The one that's already waiting for you to notice. End of story.